Well, it looks like we've got a full crowd, so I'm going to get started. My name is Eric Dillner, and I'm the CEO of the Shoreline Arts Alliance. Welcome to Images 2023, the discussion with the jurors. Thank you so much for joining us in this virtual experience. We're excited to continue on with the virtual experience because we're able to get jurors from across the land, so to speak, so that we don't all have to be really close to each other to experience this show and to get some wonderful talent outside of our tight little area. So anyway, let me tell you a couple of things about Shoreline Arts Alliance real quick. Number one, Shoreline Arts Alliance's goal is to transform lives through the arts. And we do this in so many ways, from scholarships for young artists to awards for all. We help mentorships for arts leaders and students alone. Basically, every day we work to transform lives through the arts. And we hope today that we're going to transform one of your lives through this experience tonight. Somehow you're going to see something a little differently. Somehow you're going to find some joy out of something you see, or maybe it just brings some kind of an emotion that you haven't felt in a while. So that's what we're hoping today for you all. So far for us, this experience for Images 2023 has been remarkable. We've got much more planned for you. As you know, we're back to, finally, after some years of taking a break, we're back to having an opening reception. And don't forget, that's at 4 o'clock on Saturday, September 9th. We're also going to present the awards in person. So we sure hope that you all can be there. We're going to do that around 4:30-ish. So make sure you come. And then we also have 2 gallery talks scheduled with Sean, who you're going to meet here in a minute, with Sean Kernan, on September 23rd, one at 11 in the morning and one at 1:30. The gallery will be open all the way in between that time. So we're really excited about all the things that are to come. I want to thank you first and foremost, all of the artists out there who have joined in this pursuit to be in the show. You have volunteered your time to gallery sit and to hang the show and to spread the word through your social media, and we can't thank you enough for that. I know it seems small, but we also want to thank you for paying the credit card charge when you submitted. I mean, those little things add up big time for this organization. Over the years, the Shoreline Arts Alliance has been really honored to have many sponsors of Images. Milford Photo, Yale, several of folks who for many, many years helped us. When COVID came, we actually lost all of our sponsors. And so we're in the rebuilding phase for Images and want to find a new way to make that happen. So your efforts of supporting the credit card fee, of voting for your audience choice, which we'll talk about later, you're thinking about who might be a sponsor for this show in the future, and helping us do that would be ideal. I'm going to get off my soapbox about that here in a second, but I just want to share with you the real bummer about Connecticut today is that just recently the legislators voted to cut the arts in a big way. And unfortunately, that took $50,000 out of Shoreline Arts Alliance's budget, $50,000. So a project like Images, which costs us about $15,000, really suffers because we don't have extra staff when we can hire on extra people and all that. So again, I just want to thank you so much for volunteering. Every minute that you volunteer saves us on time and allows us to devote efforts to finding new sponsors for the future. So again, thank you so much. I want to also, though, on the other side, thank Connecticut Office of the Arts. They have been continuing to hold true. They support us at a $40,000 level to really for our advocacy efforts, not for nights like tonight, but for our advocacy efforts for helping all arts organizations and artists. So we still keep plugging along, thanks to you. Anyway, enough on that, but I just want to remind you that anything you could do, gallery sit and all that, is a great thing. Okay, so tonight you see on the screen that transforming lives through the arts. Let's get back to that fun. Images 23 2023 has a cast of characters that I can't wait for you to meet. We have these wonderful three folks, Jacqueline, Michael, and Sean, who are here to celebrate with you what's been going on. Now, you all have seen their bios a million times, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about them because I've sent that out a lot and many of you read it. But I want you to know these folks are not only highly lauded, remarkably talented, and respected authorities in the world of photography, but they took care to view almost 600. We keep saying that. I think it was like 598. I don't remember, but it was really close to 600 pieces, photos to look at. And they went and they looked and looked. And we spent an entire week together during individually, they'd send their comments back. And then in the end, working together to curate a show. So I know that we have their bios up here, but you've read them a million times, so I'm not going to go too far. But Jacqueline, thank you so much for being here. We're so honored to have you here. Folks, Michael, this is Michael's wonderful journey in his lifetime as well. Again, I know you've seen this slide coming out to you through social media and all that stuff. But I want to invite, and Sean, I skipped right over you. Thank you so much. Let's start tonight with me turning off this silly little share and bring Michael in, because Michael's going to represent the three jurors here for a minute and kind of share a little bit about curating the show and what it was all about to you all. And then Sean and Jacqueline, pipe in if you want. This is a discussion after all. So Michael, why don't you jump in?
Thank you, Eric. Nice to be with everybody this evening. Greetings from Cayuga Lake, New York, one of the Finger Lakes. So I've been here for 5 days, and I'm really relaxed and looking forward to meeting everyone this evening. And I appreciate my co-jurors selecting me to be the spokesman for our week together judging and looking at 597 picture files. So let me begin. Photography, you know, we all know is sort of, it's writing with light. We chase the light, we look for the light, we look for things that are interesting when lit, because in the dark, it's pretty hard to make pictures. So we need our light to make it work. And whether we're looking at pictures and prints, or whether we're looking at digital files on phones or computers, the picture is studied and enjoyed and viewed by both the creator of the work and the viewer, which is an interesting kind of technology to think about. The fact that the person that makes it may enjoy it as much as the person that's looking at it. As jurors, we had the distinct honor to look at almost, as Eric said, 600 files. And it was evident right away that the range of work was created by passionate, curious, and dedicated picture makers. It was evident also how the photographers in the exhibition were interested in subjects found in interesting places. We didn't look and see many very boring pictures. Everybody was out there looking. And so they saw the light just as we've seen the light. Between the three of us, I think we've been doing this for a few days, and we've had a few experiences in making pictures. I started my journey in 1972, and it's been just extraordinary. So it was really difficult to select approximately 20% of the 600 pictures that were submitted. We didn't know the names of any of the makers. It was anonymous. We only saw their pictures. And now those photographers' work that we identified compromised the exhibition. And we could see through the pictures how their skills and curiosity about the world they live in influenced the work they made. As judges, we each brought a very unique background to the evaluation, because we all worked in very different places through our careers. But it was really interesting to me as an educator how the three of us, there was so many criteria that we all mutually agreed upon that had nothing to do with me being a medical photographer or Sean working in film and the backgrounds in theater that we all brought to this. So we sort of found our common ground and used that. It was when we were looking, we looked at framing and composition issues. We looked at how the subject of the work, was it interesting or just sort of not explored fully? We looked at the treatment of the subjects, the image's technical excellence, the uniqueness of the image when contrasted with the other 600, the treatment of the subject, the technical excellence, the degree of difficulty in making some pictures. Some things are just for a millisecond, and if you don't get it right, you don't get to reshoot. It's over. It's a lost opportunity. So alone, the three of us judged by ourselves. We spent at least 2, 3, 4 hours on the first round, and we looked and we voted and we graded the images, and pictures that had at least 2 stars went to round 2. And then we did it again. I think I spent a good 8 hours or more looking at all those files all by myself in my basement. And it was really great. I turned on a little music and I enjoyed the images and was drawn into the work. And by the time we got through our second, we were down to 100. So we were getting close. But it was really difficult to make the last choices. You know, we all had our favorites. That was evident. Sean would trade one of his favorites for one of Jacqueline's favorites, and I would negotiate a couple of mine, because it was no way to get forward if people were too passionate about some things. But we had images that we truly enjoyed. So it was difficult because all the pictures were good. Truthfully, all the pictures were good, and you should all feel really great about the work that you did, because you love photography like all of us do. But because space was limited, we had to select the very best of what we felt, and we needed to create an exceptional collections that represented what was submitted. We couldn't have all portraits or all landscapes or all contrived pictures. We had to have something that represented all of the makers. And we hope that you find what we chose to be as beautiful and diverse and interesting and excellent examples of craft, passion, skills, luck, and vision. Selecting the 5 award winners was super difficult. It just seemed to be a tug of war for good reasons. You know, there were such beautiful pictures that came to the top. So picking 5 out of 600 was done with great respect and with the goal of being true to the images that we had chosen, included in the exhibition. So it seems as we share this with you that any of the 22 that we found as we got to the very end could have been selected. We chose the 5 that really absolutely thrilled us, and we hope that you'll enjoy that. Your dedication to your work was evident to us, and congratulations.
Thank you so much, Michael. Before we get on to the awards, Sean and Jacqueline, anything to add?
Well, I want to thank Michael for representing us, and very well said, Michael. It really was, first of all, it was such an honor to judge this competition, and there was such a high caliber level of imagery submitted, which did make it so hard to narrow down. I mean, I have never been part of a competition jury where, you know, every single image had something of value and something really that caught my eye. So it was really hard. But what I loved working with Michael and Sean, I love that while we all might have had different opinions about an image or why we liked it, we had no fights. There were no fights, but we still respected each other's opinions, and we, you know, I could then see the image that maybe at first I wasn't drawn to as much. Then it gave me another reason to go back in. So hearing what they thought as well was so valuable to me, and what I think made this competition overall such a valuable experience. And what will make it a valuable experience for the viewers to see what the final images were or are.
Yeah, it's always fascinating to do this kind of thing. And I was reminded of a book that somebody gave me. It's called Why Art Cannot Be Taught. And it was written by a man who was in a university art department for 25 years. So he must have tried, and he must have come up short. But what he came down to was there's no agreed upon criterion for what is good. Not one good thing. So doing it is always kind of what does your stomach feel like? What pictures look back at you? And the thing that I always keep turning back to is not even a question of whether it's a good photograph, but is it alive? And that really guides me through nearly 600 pictures to come up with these other ones. I don't want to call them the best. And I'm reminded that when I had been photographing for 6 months, somebody arranged an audience with Walker Evans for me. And I took my little pictures in to show to Walker Evans. And when I now think of what I showed to him, I'm so embarrassed retroactively. But he went through them and he looked at them and he handed them back at the end and he said, "Young man, I don't see anything in this." And it was exactly what I needed to hear, because there was pretty much nothing in it. But it was like the baby being slapped at birth. And I didn't start to cry. I started to really look around. So going through this process, I sort of got to relive my whole career, looking at things that I had done at various points or tried to do. So it's an incredibly enlivening project. It really is. So my thanks to all of you who sent in the interesting work that fueled the whole thing. I think you'll be excited when you see the whole show.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much. So we're going to jump right in, and we're going to go through and give our first honors awards right away. So Sean, we're going to stick with you, and I'm going to see if I can get this slideshow to work a little bit better this time. Let's see if something slides up on the screen here for you to see. Do you see our first honors there?
I do.
All right, Sean. So first honors is
Renewal by Barbara Soares. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it's just an amazing picture. I remember Jay Maisel saying to a friend of mine, and he said, "You son of a bitch," he said, "if I could get that slide out of your tray and into mine, I'd do it in a second." And that's the way I feel about this picture. It's really incredibly alert and alive, especially at that hour of the morning.
Absolutely. Let's see if I can. Wow, isn't that funny? It's not playing nice with me tonight. There we go. Number 2 here, first honors, is Jacqueline's going to talk a little bit about it.
So Global Shopper by Bill Canosa. I love this image. I mean, it really drew me in right away. I love this old world feeling that it has. I love the framing and the composition. I love the woman and just the richness overall of the entire image. But, while my eye goes to her, I also see everything going on in the background. It's interesting for me. I worked at Photo District News for 25 years. It was like my first job out of school 100 years ago. And this image really reminds me of what we used to see for submissions in the photo annual. Mm-hmm. And I have to throw in a little plug that I wish somebody would bring Photo District News back. But I mean, this image is just so rich and textured and nuanced. And like I often say that when I'm looking at an image, I want this gut punch reaction. I want a visceral reaction first and then think about why later. And I had, it really punched me on the gut. And then I had my reasons for why, which I just explained. But again, it's just like, I love how old world it looks, but it's also, it also like causes me to think about what's going on. I got a little bit of like, oh, maybe she's doing holiday shopping, but then it's much more, it's just much more than that. And I just love it. I can't say more about it. I was gut punched.
Great. Congratulations, Bill. And here we are, Michael, with Irish Landscape.
Irish Landscape by Sonny Whelan. We had a lot of conversation about what should be included and what would be the top choices of the exhibition. And we wanted to be inclusive of all of the range of content that people had submitted. And as we looked about this, we saw lots of landscapes. Many had horses, some had cows, some had sheep, some had nothing, just the landscape by itself with the trees and the like. This one seemed to resonate with all three of us because of the dappled light that was coming from the sky, that moment where the sun just peeked through the clouds and hit the background. So it drew our eye through the flowers, through the cows on the hillside, where the patches of trees grew through the valley. It had all of those things about balance, symmetry, uniqueness, something special. The light just happened at that magic moment where you want to be at the right time, which doesn't happen often. How many photo walks have we all had and the light just didn't happen? It was like, I go home and I didn't get anything. So you got to be out there to make the picture, and then you have to have everything just come together. And we felt this picture had that impact, that had all those elements, all happened coincidentally, right when the photographer was there with the camera.
Thank you, Michael, and congratulations, Sonny. Our next one is, let's see, Sean, you want to talk about this one?
Yes. It really was different than a lot of the work that we saw in that. It was made, it was cast and assembled and manufactured around an idea. But then what really made it happen was that it got beyond the idea. And I got the feeling that Catherine Dixon, who did this, looked at her files afterward and was surprised herself by it. And that's just gold. That's the most wonderful thing that can happen. So I felt like I was participating in that with her, in that surprise at what she'd done. I hope that's true.
And our Ann Christensen winner, Michael, I think you're going to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I really responded to this picture because I hope many of you have had the pleasure to travel, and I've traveled all over the world, and how many months of my life have been spent at a window looking out at the wing or the sky or the clouds, or just wondering, because it's a kind of mindless thing to just fly. But this one really stood out for me because, well, the light, talking about light, we have the Southwest airline thing lit up perfectly at the end of that wing. But what really drew me in was how the cloud worked with the city below, and, whether we were taking off or whether we were landing, there's those moments and the clouds are going by 500 miles an hour through the window and you can't really see them. They're just happening. This is the speed. So this picture froze all of that. The clouds are clearly discernible. The wing is razor tack sharp. And there's this ethereal mood that came through for this. And so it brought me back to all of those hours, looking, eager to land, whether it was the destination or coming home because of the long travel. And it just made me feel happy inside. My stomach felt really a good feeling. So we love this picture for all those reasons that aren't necessarily quantifiable. But as Sean said, it's alive. The picture had a spirit.
Look at that. Look at the radiation of those. I mean, the composition of the city is just amazing. It's really wonderful. Nice work.
So those are our first five, but now we have a large grouping of honorable mentions that Jackie's going to start us with, but this is our free-for-all, folks. So, we want to hear what everybody has to say and start, dig a little deeper if you have it in this. So, Jacqueline, you want to start us out?
Sure. I mean, I think with these images, which we've, put in the honorable mention category, they're so representative of the range of work we saw overall. And, that's what I just love about all of these. And if you go through all of them together, looking like on a contact sheet, so to speak, each one actually is so different from the other, but works so well next to each other. And again, it just gives that feeling like of a well-curated show. We saw landscapes, we saw great portraiture and documentary work, amazing fine art, florals, animals. And while that sounds like it's so different from one another, why are they all in the same show? For me, like these honorable mentions convey how that they all worked. There's such a range of talent. And it just sort of sums up everything we saw and everything we liked overall.
Absolutely. You want me to advance it?
Sure.
Can I throw in something?
Oh, please.
Sure.
I'm so looking forward to seeing the show because one of the things that happens with these kind of events is that every image is reduced to the size of whatever screen we're looking at, and that's not how they work in life. So seeing some of the size variations or print variations or you know how they were produced and so forth is going to let a kind of a richness become clear. That's what I'm looking forward to.
And also like just seeing the composition and the texture and everything. I mean, you know, it's funny because I'll probably get vilified for saying this. I'm not a big like animal portrait person, but I just love the ones that we saw and how like humanized they became. And, you know, this one in the middle, I just really am drawn to that and the composition of it and the texture of the background. And, you know, everything is working here for me. So it just becomes more than, you know, I don't know what these are. Are these ducks? Are these, you know, but like it just like brings so much to the table seeing this, especially next to the other images. There's just such a high quality to each of these. Do you want me to go through these, Bill, or have other people
Anybody,
talk? Okay.
anybody. I know, Michael, you spoke a lot about this
Right.
William Fruit piece. Is that right?
The Untitled by William Frucht. Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, you know, Rabbi Schneerson, the poster in the background, is revered worldwide for his activities in Judaism. And I had just recently traveled to Israel, and his posters were all over the roadways. They were on bulletin boards. They were on the old wall of the old city. And then to see these two Hasidic Jews in front of the poster with opposing points of view, the quality of the light, the colors, the composition, it all became almost like a triptych to me. Three individuals from three different periods of time, but contrast of the lighting, the composition. I know it's a street photography thing. Nothing about this, I'm sure, was contrived because of the nature of Hasidic Jews. I just was really drawn into it. And then as I look at the image that's been chosen to contrast it on the right, I was also drawn to that one because, you know, it felt to me like a picture taken from the 40s. It was like a motion picture, Hollywood kind of promotional photograph that would be used in a film of sorts or something that way. I like the softness of the highlights as they kind of glow, the lighting, the composition, the hands, the gestures. It made me kind of want to study it and understand the reasons for its making.
I want to hear the music that is an album cover too. I bet it's going to be really interesting.
You want me to keep going?
Sure.
Jump in?
Absolutely.
Sure. So the one on the left, we debated. I think I liked this and nobody else did. And then we talked about it, and I said it reminded me of ribs, that there was this kind of suturing going on, you know, like stitches. And the color contrast of the red gaffer's tape on top of the plastic tent just seemed like it was past its life expectancy, but it was on life support and it was hanging in there. And so the color, the simplicity of the picture, and then whatever meaning was in it with the use of the tape and how that became part of the composition. But the one on the right was, we all jumped on this one. We loved this one. The quality of the light, the composition, the placement of the chair, the history of the penitentiary in Pennsylvania. It just has everything working for it, because we all were, all the images that had a grittiness to them, a texture to them, a color, either whether spot color, monochrome, or so much color. Those were the ones that seemed to find their way forward. Pictures that really, there was a place for our eye to start and then explore the images that were chosen to be defined by the frame.
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting what you said, Michael, that both of these pieces spoke to you, but maybe Untitled 3 didn't necessarily speak to Sean and Jacqueline. Don't let me put words in your mouth, but maybe not immediately. But then it somehow made its way, kept coming back around. Lots of discussion around this. Sean and Jacqueline, will you want to talk about like what brought you into the piece? Maybe how you transformed?
I'll say that the more time I spent with it, suddenly I had a shift, and it began to look to me like an art project, a conceptual art project that raises the question, what is this, but doesn't give you an answer. And I could see setting that up in a university campus or something like that. That's what it started to be, not what it might be about, but just what it was.
Yeah, I'll admit that in the beginning, I wasn't drawn to this one at all. And then over time, I just started to like it more and more, and I heard what Michael and Sean were saying about it as we were judging. And I think one reason I started to like it more and more, I see a sense of symmetry there with those three poles. And then what Sean just said, like, I don't know exactly what it is or why I like it, but then I just start to think more about it. So I like that it's conceptual and that each viewer would bring its own, ideas of what it is. So it makes you think, which is something I love about an image. It's not, so, we're not really like, it doesn't hit me in the face right away, but I like that I, over time, like really thought more about it. And so it wasn't because they liked it. I like started to think about it and think why I liked it.
Yeah, this was a really fast. Go ahead, Michael, go ahead.
We thought you liked it because we liked it.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe offline, I'll admit to that. No, but it does make me think.
But it is interesting, these two pieces on the same slide. Really, the barber chair, you all immediately were drawn to it. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorites as well. But I'm a big fan of like texture and grittiness, and like I feel like I can feel the walls around that chair, and there's several. It conjures up like sort of torture chamber, but also like I love the light coming in from the top, and it's quite beautiful with that pop of color and the texture of the walls.
Yeah.
So while it might be something unpleasant that was there to begin with, I see it overall as a really beautiful image.
Well, I think that's wonderful insight for all of us as submitters, as people are trying to, get their work known. All work can affect us in different ways. So let's talk about these two, because they're also interesting people in both of these. And who wants to start off with what's going on here? We don't have to talk about both of them. Maybe we start with Untitled first. Somebody want to chat about Untitled?
I'll say something about that, because I was thinking about it before we started it. I think it's the same fellow who did the Schneerson with the two pedestrians, I think.
Yes, this one.
Yeah. But what I thought about it was the quickness of the eye. So it's the way it's structured. It almost looks like the photographer was there with a megaphone saying, "You in the blue jacket, move down to the front. You look up at the skyscraper." It looks that managed, but it's not. And it's like, watching a juggler with three balls is not very interesting. But when a juggler has three balls, a cat, a live cat, a burning tiki torch, and a running chainsaw, and is juggling those, you just say, is that all going to fall apart? And it doesn't. It just plays. Good eye.
Yeah, right. So what about hair? What drew you all to this?
I loved it because, it's the soft and the hard and the flow and the age of the model and all those. It's a very simple picture, but it's very complicated. It doesn't have a lot of elements to it, but what are there, certainly your eye goes through the hair, through the face, through the ear, through the shape, through the contrast of the hair to the texture of the rock and all those types of components. So it has a spirit to it was very interesting to me. I like this one, and there was another one from the same photographer, I believe, who I just enjoyed the work for those reasons.
Yeah, I really was like drawn in by the beauty of the simplicity of this image. You know, it's really beautiful in its simplicity. It's like peaceful and serene, but also, as Michael said, it's complex as well. So I was really drawn in as well to it.
The only thing that, having looked at student photographs and professional photographs across a wide range of spectrums, I talk to students about this all the time. Try to get clothing without logos and imprinting when you're going to choose to include clothing and imprinting and sweatshirts, because it ends up, humans want to read things. So if there's something for the eye to land on, a logo or a polo shirt, Gucci, whatever it says, you're going to read it. And then you take away the magic of the picture and the components and the elements. So when you try to build images such as hair, try to use clothing on the people that participate in your photography with just plain articles of clothing. Colors are secondary, and make the pictures probably based on choices for other reasons, but stay away from things where people can read.
Thank you all. That's really, really good insight. How about if we talk a little bit of this Out from the Fog?
But that was one of my favorites as well. And like you probably by now see a pattern of what I'm drawn to, these sort of peoplescapes. And I love how atmospheric this image is. You know, I was transported onto a boardwalk hearing seagulls cawing in the distance and maybe like splash from the ocean on my arms. Like I just feel it so much. I just think it's stunning. And again, that atmospheric feel. I love the fog. I can feel that sort of caressing my face. So I really like felt this. And that's why I was drawn so much to it. And the fact that there's some movement there with the people on the boardwalk.
Very nice. Wonderful. And how about peeling paint? Number 4.
I know Michael loved that one. I mean, it's beautiful, but I keep voting Michael to speak about things. I'm not gonna.
I hope that's for good reasons, but thank you.
It is. It is.
I was, I've taken pictures like I'm sure many people of paint and things in various stages of disrepair and deterioration. And the way that the texture and the pigments and monochromatic images, we don't see as many black and white pictures as in years past, because we can use and we can change tones, change colors, turn it colorful, make it grayscale very quickly and easily. So I think that part, but in this one, what really interested me when compared to the others that Robert made was the almost Native American Indian composition. I'm not sure what's going on with the audio, but
there's some sound. Yeah, I think it's gone now.
Yeah, so I loved where the little pictograph drawing of sorts lived in the highlight, and then the variety of shapes, almost like a jigsaw puzzle. And it had symmetry, but it doesn't. It has balance, but it doesn't. It has tonal balance, but it doesn't. So, in an old world, it would be like a perfect zone system picture.
Sean, I think you're trying to say something. We didn't hear you.
I think he's lost his mic.
Uh-oh.
You're not muted, but we can't hear you.
All right, well, while you keep pushing buttons, Sean, we're going to move to the next one, but if you want to come back, we'll let you. So let's talk about zone front.
Speaking about zone system, huh?
Yeah.
Jacqueline, you get to go. I'm gonna just pass. You got the talking stick.
Sean, I think you're back, by the
Oh.
way.
Okay, good.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny because I think it's, we did not know who photographed any of these when we were looking at them, but I think the ones that I keep saying I liked were by Bill Canosa. And so, didn't know at all who the maker of any of these were. And again, I just like the drama here, the like juxtaposition of sort of peacefulness with that dramatic like sky on the right. I'm drawn to composition again, of just like atmosphere. And, I just think there's also like I see layers and levels to it. And so together it all works for me. Because then again, like a lot of the things we're drawn to, I think, are types of images we might have seen before, but the difference here is that these are a unique take on maybe, not this one necessarily, but like unique takes on maybe common things that we see all the time, or as jurors, things we see in competitions all the time. And so I think that's important for, people listening to know as well, like not to sound like a weird American Idol judge, but how do you make this your own? Like it's so important. And that's what I see here as well. Like how many sky images have we seen, or sky over water, but this is so unique and dramatic and atmospheric.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Sure. And I love the shapes.
The shapes. Yeah.
I was in Catwalk, is that the name of that?
Yes, Catwalk.
That was the last image that
Yeah.
was in the show, which can be a problematic position. But I immediately responded to this because it is difficult. There's a sense, and I'm only responding to what I'm getting just right out of the picture, not elsewhere. But there's something a little hard and a little difficult about this picture, and so much of life in the world is like that now. I'm tired of myself taking pictures that look lovely, but I like the hardness of this.
Yeah, there's a real storytelling element to this. And I think that's another like theme of a lot of these. Like, how do you say something in just one frame? Is there a narrative? This really, to me, had a narrative. There's a bit of sadness, but there's a bit of toughness. And I just like the juxtaposition again of like light and shadow. So it makes me think. And we don't always have to think about images, right? We could just like something right away. But like for me, as a viewer, I really like to think about what the photographer was thinking or what the image says, but it says different things to each of us.
Very good. Who would like to talk about the map of the universe?
It does look like something from the Hubble telescope, doesn't it? Or not the Hubble, the Webb. This is the far edge of the universe.
So, I want to ask a question about this. So you all didn't know the names of any of these pieces much. I mean, we know you didn't know the artist names, but when you see something like this leaf that is now named the map of the universe, does something like that shift your thought process of what you are seeing? I mean, still, yeah. What does it do?
Were the titles visible to us?
No,
I don't think so. No,
they were not.
Yeah.
They were not. Every piece was given a number. That's all you knew was number. Remember, we'd say, what do you think about number 59? So, yeah.
I just like to say
Change
for a
it for
second.
me. I sometimes think that photographs maybe shouldn't be named, or they get overnamed. I remember years ago seeing some picture of trees in the fog, and it was lovely. And then the title was Misty Sentinels. And it just seemed like a kind of saccharine diminishment of the picture. So it doesn't change it much for me. In this case, actually, it is kind of, it plays nicely with the image. Yeah. But that's my grouch about that kind of thing.
I mean, I agree with Sean. I prefer no titles or captions or anything when I'm like judging images or viewing them, because they don't always sync up. And then it's almost like a ding against the person who named it, So, I mean, this does work well with the image, but like, I prefer no titles or captions, just me personally.
Working in science, as I have for so many years, almost all the subjects that I photograph have no frame of reference or context, because they're almost always a piece of something that's not whole anymore. So I can see 2 or 3 millimeters of something. So the viewer goes, "Oh, that is so cool." And they say, "What is it?" And I say, "That's brain cancer." And they go, "Oh my God, that's horrible." But then they're drawn into the elements of the picture like we see here. So things take on different sort of emphasis. We can project our own interpretations on what we're looking at when we don't have a frame of reference. And so a lot of my work sort of satisfies that sort of experience, because nobody knows what liver cells look like when they're done in a different kind of way. Medical imaging is huge, but taken out of the medical environment and showed to the general public, people are fascinated with things they haven't seen normally without the tools of photography, because they're not to go into places where very interesting and unusual objects are photographed, or nature is redesigned and re-engineered to provide more food from a certain kind of seed batch. So there's all kinds of fascinating things going on in this invisible world. So things like this I would title Oak Leaf and leave it alone. Let the viewer look at it, and rather than trying to, because there's a French photographer, Bertrand, who does all kinds of balloon photography of landscapes, and you don't have any idea that it's a landscape. It could be because there's color and texture, and water is black in certain places. Other places it's almost sea green, pea green. It's just fascinating what Bertrand's lens and eye sees. So this could be one of Bertrand's photograph of a delta. So similar to Map of the Universe, it's fun to just allow the viewer to figure out what they like about it and what they see in it, rather than coaching their vision through a title.
So water lily doesn't offend anyone.
What's interesting about that is I would have expected that subject to have been framed up more serenely. And in fact, it's a very kinetic image. There's a lot of tension and a lot of movement in the thing, which I really appreciate, because on my worst days, I would have just centered everything up. And
so I'm gonna do something. Black and white really makes it much more dramatic. Stronger, because we'd expect to see the water lily and its color in the green leaf. So as a monochromatic black and white tones, it adds to the kinetic thing that Sean was describing.
So I'm going to throw a little curveball at you guys. I hope that's all right. So we didn't spend a lot of time on our first honors, but let's go back for a minute now that we've kind of seen the whole show, and let's talk a little bit more about these first couple of images and how they really how they jumped to that next level for you, or look the composition. I remember was something you all talked about together.
Can you just click through the group?
So this is Renewal, Global Shopper, Irish Landscape, Destino, and Untitled 5.
I'm just noticing that about each one of them, they're interesting. They're all there, and then there's something else that sort of comes over the top. Something very quick. It's almost like you turned and saw something very thoughtlessly, and it was perfect. It's not labored. Even this, which I think was a lot of work. And even the airplane picture, which looks to me like he had to deal with a pilot. He said, "Could you go round again so I can?" It really does, and optical glass in the plane windows. But again, it's It would be a lovely picture without the airplane wing, but that just is another thing that modulates everything.
But I like to like put my hand over a certain element in an image, like I'm cropping out that plane right now with my hand. And again, it's a gorgeous image without it, but then with that element added in, not added in, but like it just brings it up to the next level. So I think that's also why we, what Sean's talking about and why we really engaged with it. The contrast between what's going on below and the colors of the plane and everything, it just seems so seamless. I think that's another thing. I'm sure like there was a lot of effort for all of these images, but like everything just looks seamless. And we don't feel the strain when we're looking at it. We don't feel tension unless tension was meant to be there. I think it just, as viewers, it just all works seamlessly.
I just have another thought about the first one, which is it's intimate. It's intimate. There's not a lot of intimacy in these things, but it's.
Is this the one you meant, Sean?
Yeah.
I know. I like also the levels of like voyeurism happening here, like where voyeurs, the guy in the background, the woman with her, I think it's a woman with her camera. And then there's just several layers happening. It just, again, draws me in without thinking about why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this was an exciting process, I have to say. And I want to, again, congratulate all you who submitted, because that we could have really created multiple shows, I felt, with these. Matter of fact, I was really worried after the first day, like hardly any were cut from the show. And they really, I don't know if y'all remember that, but
Yes.
the first day I was in panic mode. I was like, this is going to take us a month to get to the end of this judging process. But it was really nice because each piece, each groupings, well, and often you didn't know, you could, most of the time, I don't think any of you could tell what photographer took multiple photos, even though I told you that some took 3, some took as many as 10. Really was rare that there was a grouping that you all said, oh, there are 3 of those, let's make sure we like them, let's make sure we get one of those in the show. That did happen a couple times, but again, overall, it seemed that composition was something you all talked about a lot. You all talked about I wish I could remember the word you used, Michael. I can't seem to come up with it now. But the just how things were set, a different word for composition, I guess. But
I called it
framing.
What was that?
framing.
The framing of it. You talked about, that's right, framing of it quite a bit.
But when somebody, I've come to think of composition as being an invitation. It's the music that's playing as you're walking by the nightclub, and one of them's playing jazz and one of them's playing string quartet and so forth, and it engages you right away and tells you what the experience is going to feed you if you walk in.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you all a last thought, but I'm going to run through a couple of other slides that I want to tell the folks about. But then I'd love for us to all wrap it up with something or a conversation if there's a topic you want to throw on the table. So I want to just say you all have your own ideas about this show, and so we want to know about them. So we've put up on our website now, this show is up, and very shortly all of the winners will be loaded up to our website. But we want you to go and take a look at all of the show in your own mind. And we have the opportunity on the website to vote for what we call the People's Choice Award. And that will be just, we'll determine the winner of that on the very last minute of the gallery show. So on that very last day, Saturday at 4 o'clock will be the cutoff for that. So we hope you'll enjoy that. I want to thank my board of directors for all they do to keep projects like this going. If you know them, say hello. If you don't, consider writing them a little note sometime and saying thanks. We have this incredible group that meets year round. I invite you all. Oh, we can't seem to spell the word committee, I noticed. We have this great thing called committee for images that helps us think outside the box a little bit. This is our last, I'm going to lay it out there. This is our last time doing this show at Lime Academy. And so we're looking for a new space. So one of the things this group is doing is trying to come up with new spaces in their mind while I go out and try to find out if they'll work. If you'd like to join us in this process of finding a new space or talking about what would be better for the future of images, how we can go back to the early days when we all submitted all in person with the judges coming in from out of town, and they had to sift through all this work on paper or in other forms. That's the kind of stuff we talk about. So talk to one of these folks or talk to me about being on the committee. We do have sponsors that are so wonderful to this organization. And so I want to thank them. And then lastly, I want to invite you to hear Sean talk one more time about as he walks around the gallery on this day. You'll see these ads coming out, and we're going to actually share a bunch of other ads with you to use. So again, I want to turn it right back over to all of you all for a final discussion, a final word, however you like. And who wants to take that?
Well, one thing I was thinking about bringing up before, and then I didn't, but as you went through the images one last time, Eric, it occurred to me that like when I look at images, I also think about like horizontal or vertical, because I am naturally drawn to horizontals. But what I really loved with these verticals, you know, even tightly cropped in, like they just worked so well. And I find that like a lot of the photographers I've dealt with in my career who are just starting out will sort of crop something or like zoom in, and then they've just left out a really important storytelling piece of the narrative. But with these verticals, that did not happen. I don't know if Michael or Sean even look at that, but I just thought it's something also to photographer to think about, you know, are they shooting in horizontal or vertical or a more square, and what it means for the viewer looking in. Do they feel like something's missing, or is it cohesive? So that went through my mind as well, judging these.
I'm so married to the horizontal that because I just like sweeping. So
Me
that
too.
would be a good reason to go out and spend 3 weeks doing nothing but verticals.
Right.
Well, it's been really enjoyable to look at other people's work in such a large scale. You know, just the sheer volume of the pictures we got to enjoy for the couple of days that we judged alone. So it was inspiring, and, you know, I couldn't wait to pick up my camera and go try some new things from old things that I had explored, as Sean had done. You know, I've been making pictures 50 years, so I never get tired of looking at other people's work, and it affects me and how I see things, and the curiosity is reborn again, because sometimes we do get stale and we get tired. The world we live in, you know, I mean, I'm a pretty big Instagram person, so I might look at 5,000 pictures a day on Instagram just because they're there. You don't even spend a second on them. So this process let me stop. Took some time to enjoy the piece for what it was, rather than, you know, flipping through the images at light speed, because nothing attracted me. Because how many dinner plates can I look at, and how many margaritas can I look at, and how many coffee cups can lattes and, you know, mochachinos and all these things that people fill the social media streams with. So this was really delightful, and thanks, Eric, for including me in this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Oh, our pleasure. Well, again, if there were a way to hear the round of applause, I know all of our folks out there would be doing that right now. Thank you so very, very much. I look forward to connecting with you all soon. Unfortunately, we try to have different judges every year. So unfortunately, you may not hear from me for a few years, but you guys have been so wonderful. I wish I could just bottle you up and keep you every year. But we like to cycle folks through. So if you have friends out in the business that you think we should encourage to become judges for us, we of course love to hear about that. So I'm sure I'll get a bunch of questions over the next few months. and I'll try not to harass you too much, but you might hear from me. Anyway, thank you all so very, very much. Come up to Connecticut and see the show if you want. We'll take you to lunch. All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
See you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.